Imagine a world where Columbus never set sail, where the New World remained undiscovered by Europe. Today, we'll explore how such a shift could have reshaped political, economic, and cultural landscapes globally, offering a glimpse into a truly alternate history of modern civilization. This podcast has been generated with Potifyer, the app that transforms any document, article, or topic of your choice into engaging conversations. More information in the description below. So, if Columbus never reached the Americas, what would have happened to Europe's economy?
Without the influx of gold and silver from the New World, Spain's empire wouldn't have experienced the same financial boom. They relied heavily on these resources to fund their military and expansive ambitions. As a result, Spain would likely have remained a regional power, unable to dominate Europe as it did historically. This lack of American bullion would mean that Europe stayed fragmented longer, with smaller states competing for dominance. The focus would have been on Mediterranean trade routes and the Silk Road, which would keep Asia as a significant player in global economics.
Wouldn't that mean other regions like China could have risen sooner?
Exactly. Without the American resources, the Industrial Revolution might have been delayed in Europe, perhaps starting in China instead. China was technologically advanced and had a strong economy during this period. They had the potential to industrialize earlier, shifting the center of technological innovation to the east. Europe's internal economy would have been much more insular, relying on local resources and trade networks. This could have slowed technological advances and kept Europe from becoming the dominant force it eventually did.
And what about the Americas themselves?
In the Americas, without European interference, indigenous civilizations would have continued to evolve independently. The Incas, for instance, were already developing a sophisticated network of roads and trade routes across the Andes. They could have further consolidated their influence across the continent, creating a unified economic system. In Mesoamerica, city-states could have formed alliances similar to the merchant leagues of Renaissance Italy. These confederations would trade extensively in valuable resources like obsidian, jade, and cacao, building wealth and cultural exchange without European disruption.
So, they might have developed their own versions of economic systems?
Absolutely. North American Mississippian cities, descendants of Cahokia, were already significant trade hubs. They might have invented early forms of corporations, tied to clan houses. These systems would have allowed for large-scale commerce across river networks, fostering innovation and growth. The lack of European colonization would mean these societies could develop unique political and economic structures, potentially rivaling those of Europe and Asia at the time.
It sounds like a very different world. Would these developments have affected global politics?
Definitely. With a more balanced distribution of power, global politics would be less Eurocentric. Alliances and rivalries would form along different lines, with Asia and the Americas playing more prominent roles in setting the global agenda. This could mean different cultural exchanges and influences, with art, science, and philosophy taking unique paths compared to our known history. It's a fascinating thought experiment to consider how worldviews and ideologies might differ in such a world.
If contact between the Old and New Worlds happened later, how would it differ from the historic encounters?
When contact eventually occurs, perhaps facilitated by a Ming Dynasty junk or a Polynesian fleet, the dynamics would be greatly different. Instead of conquest, trade negotiations would happen between equal powers. The political autonomy of the Amerikaners would be respected. They would trade unique goods like feathers, copper, and maize-based alcohols for silk and steel. This exchange would foster a blend of cultures and innovations without the subjugation and colonization seen historically.
That sounds like a more balanced relationship. How would this affect technological advancements, particularly in Europe?
In Europe, without the wealth from the New World, progress in naval engineering, chemistry, and astronomy would slow down. The lack of resources would mean fewer incentives to explore and expand. Without the Columbian Exchange, Europe would miss out on the biological and medicinal knowledge it gained from the Americas. Medicine would remain largely influenced by Galenic principles until much later, delaying medical advancements.
So, Europe would focus on different areas of science instead?
Yes, scientific curiosity would turn inward. Early geology, optics, and mechanical philosophy would dominate European scientific endeavors. The focus would be on understanding the natural world through observation and experimentation within their own territories. This introspection could lead to advances in understanding the Earth's structure, the behavior of light, and the mechanics of machines, setting a different trajectory for technological development.
What about scientific progress in the Americas?
In the Americas, the Inca could continue to advance their metallurgy techniques. They might invent hydraulic-powered smelters and develop copper-steel alloys, pushing technological boundaries in metalworking. The Maya, already skilled astronomers, could refine their astronomical instruments further. They might enhance their calendars to predict solar cycles and even earthquakes, using their deep understanding of celestial patterns and terrestrial phenomena.
It seems the Americas could have been a hub for innovation too. Would these advancements impact global knowledge?
Absolutely. As these societies interacted with the Old World, their innovations would spread, influencing global scientific and technological landscapes. The exchange would be mutually beneficial, driving progress in both hemispheres without the shadow of colonial domination. In this alternate timeline, the Americas would be seen as equal contributors to global knowledge, significantly altering the course of history as we know it.
It's intriguing how these societies would continue to evolve. How would the infrastructure in North America develop in this alternate history?
In this scenario, North American societies would likely innovate in unique ways. Imagine bison-drawn vehicles and extensive canal networks, linking Arctic trade routes to ports along the Gulf of Mexico. This would create a vibrant trade ecosystem, connecting diverse cultures and resources. Furthermore, a featherquill script would emerge as a pan-continental writing system, facilitating communication and record-keeping across vast distances. This innovation could enrich cultural exchanges and preserve knowledge.
How would these developments influence scientific progress when contact is made?
When contact eventually occurs, it might lead to the first double revolution in mathematics. The Americaners, with their understanding of cyclical time and ecological computation, would meet the Euclidean rationalism brought by Europeans. The fusion of these ideas could birth biomechanics, a field blending nature's cycles with mechanical logic. This new scientific discipline would reflect a harmonious integration of different worldviews, reshaping technological and philosophical thinking globally.
Would this affect philosophical and cosmological perspectives, especially in Europe?
Without the Age of Discovery, Europe wouldn't perceive itself as the center of the world. Medieval cosmology would persist, emphasizing an interconnected cosmos. Humanism would turn inward, encouraging exploration of the mind and soul rather than geographic conquest. The Copernican revolution, for instance, might start as a mystical concept, exploring humanity's place in the universe before evolving into a scientific theory. This introspective approach could lead to rich philosophical debates and ideas.
So, without these discoveries, the focus would shift to more internal exploration.
Precisely. Instead of looking outward, European thinkers might delve deeper into the inner workings of the human experience and the mysteries of existence. This could cultivate a profound understanding of human nature and the philosophical implications of our place in the cosmos. Such introspection could lead to a more holistic worldview, integrating spiritual and scientific insights in ways that might differ significantly from our current understanding.
It's fascinating to think how differently the world could have developed. Would these philosophical shifts impact global interactions?
Certainly. A world where philosophical thought emphasizes interconnectedness and balance could foster diplomatic relations and cooperative endeavors. This mindset might lead to more peaceful exchanges and collaborative innovations across cultures. Overall, These philosophical and scientific shifts would influence the trajectory of human development, offering alternative paths to understanding and interacting with the world.
How would philosophies in the Americas develop in this alternate timeline?
In this scenario, indigenous philosophies would expand and formalize in unique ways. The Nawa concept of Teotl, which views the universe as a dynamic energy being, could evolve into a formal metaphysical framework that blends physics with spirituality, offering a holistic understanding of the cosmos. The Inca philosophy of Ani, or reciprocity, could transform into a political ethical philosophy, influencing societal structures and perhaps even serving as a precursor to modern ecological economics. It emphasizes balance and mutual benefit, principles that are crucial for sustainable living.
What about the Mayan perspective? Would it also transform?
Certainly. Mayan dualism, with its emphasis on the interplay between sky and earth, time and space, could lead to the development of a unique logic system. This system might predate dialectics, offering a new way of reasoning that emphasizes harmony and balance between opposing forces. Such philosophical evolutions could provide alternative frameworks for understanding the world, influencing not just local cultures but eventually global thought when contact is made.
So, when mutual contact with the old world finally happens, how do these philosophies interact?
The meeting of Western linear time with American cyclical time would result in a hybrid cosmology. This could be called the spiral age, where notions of progress and return coexist, creating a worldview that accommodates both growth and reflection. This fusion of perspectives would challenge traditional concepts of time and progress, encouraging a more inclusive understanding of history and the future.
What impact would these philosophical shifts have on society and culture, especially without the devastation of epidemics?
In this alternate history, without the smallpox catastrophe, the population of the Americas could surpass Europe's by 1700. This demographic shift would mean that the Americas would have a significant influence on global culture and trade. European cities would remain smaller and less globalized due to the absence of New World resources and people. The diversity and vibrancy of American societies would contribute to a more varied global culture.
And what about the health implications?
Global pandemics would arise later and more locally, as the initial contact did not involve the massive spread of old world diseases. This means that societies would have more time to build resilience and develop their own medical practices before facing large-scale health challenges. Overall, the absence of exploitation and epidemics would allow for a more equitable cultural and sociological development, with diverse societies contributing equally to a shared global heritage.
How would the absence of certain American crops impact Europe's agriculture and food security?
Without American staples like maize, potatoes, and tomatoes, Europe would remain heavily reliant on cereal grains. This dependence could result in persistent famines, as cereal crops are more susceptible to disease and poor growing conditions compared to the diverse array of crops introduced from the Americas. Meanwhile, in the Americas, diets could be even more diverse and nutritious, combining quinoa, maize, and cacao. This nutritional abundance would support population growth and health, giving American societies a robust foundation for development.
What about agriculture practices in the Americas?
The concept of biodomestication might thrive. Instead of clear-cutting forests for agriculture, there could be a focus on selective forest farming. This approach would ensure ecological balance and sustainability, allowing for agricultural expansion without harming the environment. Such practices could lead to thriving ecosystems and a sustainable food supply, setting an example for future agricultural methods globally.
How would these agricultural developments influence cultural evolution?
In the Americas, a rich tapestry of performing arts could evolve, with dance rituals transforming into operatic philosophy. These performances might reflect societal values, spiritual beliefs, and communal stories, fostering a deep cultural identity. Architecture in the Americas could favor organic megastructures, like terrace cities that mimic the landscape. This design philosophy would integrate human living spaces with nature, creating harmonious environments that reflect the surrounding ecosystems.
And when contact occurs, what cultural dynamics emerge?
Contact would lead to cultural parity, characterized by mutual curiosity rather than domination. The exchange of ideas, art, and knowledge would be reciprocal, encouraging a balanced cultural evolution where both worlds learn and grow from each other.
Would this cultural parity affect language development?
Indeed, the linguistic landscape would be quite different. A lingua franca called Ainari might develop, blending Quechua and Mayan glyphic syntax. This language could spread through trade and interaction, serving as a bridge between diverse cultures. The script would be pictographic, syllabic, and visually rich, influencing global iconography. This would lead to a world where communication is more visual and intuitive, impacting everything from art to education.
So, the global lingua franca could have been something other than English?
Absolutely. In this alternate timeline, Ainari might take on the role of today's English, shaping global communication and cultural exchange. Its influence could be seen in the way societies express themselves, both verbally and visually, creating a unique global culture.
Would Europe's linguistic landscape have been different without the influence of global empires?
Yes, without the expansion of global empires, languages like French and Latin would likely remain dominant in written communication across Europe. Without the colonial spread, English might remain an insular language, spoken primarily on its native island. This would mean that European languages wouldn't evolve as rapidly or spread as widely as they did in our history, keeping regional dialects and languages more pronounced.
How would the meeting of different worlds affect language and communication?
When contact occurs, the aesthetics of Ainari could reshape European alphabets, introducing a more pictographic and visually rich style. This influence might lead to a form of communication akin to modern emojis with grammatical structure, bridging the gap between text and image. Translation would become a respected philosophical field much earlier, as societies seek to understand and integrate diverse linguistic concepts. The focus on translation and cross-cultural communication could foster a deeper appreciation for linguistic diversity and nuance.
It's interesting to think about how this might influence religion and mythology. What if major religions had emerged from the Americas?
In this alternate history, American origin faiths could dominate the spiritual landscape. A religion like the Solar Path might emerge, combining Inca sun worship with Aztec sacrificial concepts reinterpreted as moral renewal. This faith could offer a unique perspective on life's cycles and humanity's role in the universe. Temples in this faith would act as educational centers, where priests are seen as scientists seeking balance and knowledge. Their core dogma would emphasize that the universe is alive yet perishable, requiring care and reciprocity rather than conquest.
How would such a religion impact global culture and society?
The Solar Path would likely foster a culture of ecological awareness and responsibility. Its emphasis on balance and care would influence societal values, encouraging sustainable practices and harmonious living with nature. This faith could create a global community focused on moral integrity and environmental stewardship, altering the course of human interaction with the natural world.
It sounds like this alternative spiritual path could have profound implications for how societies develop.
Indeed, by focusing on reciprocity and balance, such a faith would inspire a worldview where human actions are seen as part of a greater cosmic cycle. This could lead to an emphasis on collective well-being and interconnectedness, shaping ethical frameworks and societal norms in meaningful ways.
How would the religious landscape of Europe change without the influence of colonial Christianity?
Without the spread of colonial missions, Christianity would likely remain regionally fragmented across Europe. The absence of global expansion would mean that Protestantism might not gain the traction it did historically, leading to a more localized expression of Christian beliefs. The Vatican's influence would be contained within Southern Europe, acting more as a regional alliance rather than a global center of power. This localized approach could result in a diverse range of Christian practices and interpretations across different regions.
Would this lead to a different kind of religious synthesis?
Certainly. By the 21st century, we could see the emergence of a theology of reciprocity. This global ethical framework would blend elements of animism, Christianity, and Confucian relational thought, promoting a more syncretic form of modernity. Such a theology would emphasize interconnectedness and mutual respect, encouraging ethical behavior that prioritizes harmony and balance across cultures and societies.
How would this theological shift impact global geopolitics?
In a world where globalization is founded on equilibrium rather than extraction, we'd see different power structures. For instance, the Andes League could emerge as a formidable post-Inca federation, controlling crucial trade corridors across South America. Meanwhile, the NALA Commonwealth might develop into a Mesoamerican democracy renowned for its advanced renewable technology, leading efforts in sustainable development and ecological innovation.
And what about relationships between the old world powers?
We could witness the formation of the Eurasian Triarchy, a cooperative alliance between Ottoman, Chinese, and European powers. This triarchy would be underpinned by trade treaties and mutual respect, fostering an environment of shared prosperity and stability. These geopolitical dynamics would create a world where balance and cooperation are prioritized over domination and resource extraction, reshaping the course of history.
It seems like such a world might offer unique challenges and opportunities.
Indeed, this alternate modern world would present different challenges, such as finding ways to maintain harmony amidst cultural diversity. However, it would also offer opportunities for collaborative innovation and ethical governance, emphasizing the shared responsibility of global stewardship.
How does Africa fit into this alternate world scenario?
In this world, Africa's industrialization occurs earlier, facilitated by shared maritime innovations with the Amerikaners. This collaboration leads to technological advancements, giving African societies a significant role in global trade and industrial development. The exchange of knowledge and resources between Africa and the Americas nurtures a dynamic economic environment, fostering prosperity and innovation across continents.
What role does diplomacy play in this interconnected world?
Diplomacy takes on a pivotal role, with mutual discovery and collaboration setting the stage for global cooperation. The First World Summit in 1780, between Ming scholars and American astronomer priests, exemplifies this spirit of collaboration, paving the way for shared scientific pursuits. Additionally, an early form of a world internet emerges, built on pictorial telegraphs inspired by Mayan glyphic logic. This innovation revolutionizes global communication, allowing for rapid exchange of ideas and cultural insights.
With such interconnectedness, do conflicts still arise?
Yes, conflicts do occur, but they are primarily ideological rather than racial. These wars of cosmology reflect differing worldviews and philosophical approaches rather than ethnic tensions, leading to debates over the nature of existence and the universe. A Cold War equivalent might arise between the mechanists of Europe, focused on mechanical logic and industrial progress, and the reciprocalists of the Americas, emphasizing balance and ecological harmony.
And what about global culture today in this alternate reality?
In today's world, people speak multiple linguae and worship the sun as a symbol of mutual interdependence. This cultural tapestry is enriched by diverse traditions and a shared appreciation for ecological and spiritual balance. Columbus is remembered, not as a hero, but as a ghostly figure whose absence reshaped history, highlighting the profound impact of paths not taken.
In exploring this alternate history, we've seen how a world without Columbus could have led to a more balanced and interconnected global society. Questions remain about the specific technologies and cultural practices that might have emerged, sparking curiosity about the uncharted possibilities of our past. This thought experiment invites us to reflect on our current path and the values that shape it.